Great Teachers is brought to you by the United Way for Southeastern Michigan, with support from the Ford Foundation. More information is available at www.liveunitedsem.org.
What makes a great teacher?
Sacrifice.
Perseverance.
To be great at it, you have to have a passion for it.
You can't have this idea that it's going to be great. You have to be able to help them through it as long as it takes.
Who makes the laws?
Congress.
Congress, which means what?
The Senate.
The Senate and the House of Representatives. Okay.
See, now I want you to share with him because sometimes he might get stuck on his thoughts for a certain question.
It's teachers who work hard. It's teachers who try to reach every student. All the various types of learners in your classroom as often as possible.
We're tired of winning. Woo! A person who's willing to step outside the box. Nora said earlier, you putting yourself down. So that's what Mr. Roberts, I think, and I'm definitely not speaking for him, I think that's what he's talking about when he says we got to stop acting like we second class.
It's not just one person that makes the team, it's everybody. We have to make each other good.
So in the beginning, how many was in? It was two. Then you had two. Then what happened?
So, there's 4.
Exactly.
It's about what the students need to know, and you have to reach them where they are in order to pull them where you want them to be. Lil Wayne song, what about it? That was the name of the song? And okay, so that comes to mind for you when you hear Millie.
Someone that's nurturing, someone that truly cares and is genuine about what they do.
Teachers that have the relationships with their students and aren't afraid to talk about themselves and share their life, open up a little bit so that the kids can feel comfortable opening up.
So how's it going? Good. Everything's going good? You ready for finals? Yeah.
Someone who comes in with a passion, that is someone who then turns around and is able to focus on what can I do to help our students? What can I do to help and make sure that they're learning?
It's taking the risks in class to try to bring these kids to a higher level. It's holding high standards in your classroom.
It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of love, a lot of money out of your own pocket, but kids are worth it. Young people are worth it.
I went to the 1D Dropout Summit 5 years ago. The students said they wouldn't have dropped out, or they wouldn't have failed, or they would have come to school more if they could have found just one person that acted like they cared. I wanted them to know that I cared if no one else did. So if I was the only one that could keep them from dropping out, that would be great for me.
A lot of the kids come to school with so many different issues.
Check your answers. True, it tells you, where does the blue line have to be?
I know people will say, well, what's it like, working in a school where kids don't want to learn or kids don't want to do this. Our kids make it to school through challenges that we sometimes don't find out about. We have kids that are sleeping in abandoned houses sometimes. We have kids that literally just come hanging by a thread.
Kids, they'll come to you and they'll talk to you about various things that are going on in their world, and you have to be able to listen to them.
I know that kids come to school with a lot of baggage. I think if you use innovative techniques, that kids can forget about a lot of their troubles and start building something inside of themselves, not only for the present time, but for the future.
Each teacher should look at themselves as a business. And so the lives that I touch, the product provider, not to make it impersonal, I want my products to represent the things that I represent, which is to be disciplined, to be prepared, and to be diverse enough so that they can adjust out in the outside world. want y'all graphic? Let's see your graphic. Oh, okay. Cool. All right.
As a teacher, I'm so many things to these students. I'm not just the person they spend a little bit of time with throughout their day. You have to make this experience personable, because if you don't, then you won't have their full attention.
I've shared my story with them, and they'll say, hey, I remember when you said this, and how did you deal with it?
You have kids who are looking up to you at all times, watching to see your moves, watching to see how you respond in certain situations, taking your advice.
They may not necessarily want to dress like you, they may not necessarily want to talk like you, but there's something about you that they respect and want to emulate.
So in your case, Delvante, what are you going to do?
If I'm going to model for them anything, I have to show them everything that's good about being educated, because after all, that's the purpose of us being here. Your introduction is just going to briefly mention your three what? Your three subtopics, exactly. You're going to mention your three subtopics, and then we're going to have our three supporting paragraphs, and we're going to end it with our conclusion.
Communication is key. Why? Because you have a relationship between you and this other person. And if communication breaks down, so does everything around you.
Everything isn't always about the lesson, because I understand, some things happen with these young people probably the night before or on their way to school that they just need to get off their chest.
Communication is huge, and you need to vary the forms, because not every child is receptive to just hearing it or just seeing it or just reading it.
The reason I went into teaching is because I really felt like I could make a difference.
That's awesome. How many did you make it all your practices?
These kids are people. They're not numbers. And you've got to learn to relate to them. And if you're not relating to them, if you're not going to an activity once in a while, if you're not talking to them after school, if you're not pulling them to the side, if you're not asking about their weekend, you have to hook me up with one of these if you got any extra. Having those little conversations make a big difference to them, because it shows to them that you actually care. What's up, Amber?
Don't film without me. I have to go to my makeup room, okay?
All right.
We're investing in young lives. These people are going to grow up one day. They're going to run the world. They're living in our communities. They're going to be my peers one day.
See, good job. We couldn't have won without you.
We invest our time and our talent and our energies to try to create in this kid something for the future.
Why not be directly involved and invest in who's going to take care of you? Children are not blank slates. When they come here, they have something. And so I meet them where they are. Okay, this is the topic. Before we even open the book, what do you already know? And then we build on that. So all of this is checks and balances. Now, why is it organized this way? So that there is no abuse of power. Now, why do you think the Founding Fathers didn't want abuse of power?
I think teachers have to plan on being everything that they can be to a student.
I call them my kids. They're like my kids, but they're my students, and they're humans. They're individuals, and they deserve that.
It might take more time for one student than the other, and wait for them, because they're going to be ready to move from there. Take that risk, and then you move them.
When you really talk about being serious about removing barriers to student learning, the only way that you can do that is if you know what those barriers are.
I haven't checked that yet. Oh, you ahead of the game. All right.
Let's talk about the why. We start out with the X and A. Well, God, if the X-axis, the X stays the same, what do you think is going to happen on the Y-axis?
I've been a coach, and I know that coaching in the classroom is just as important. When I'm out on the softball field and I'm coaching the softball team, one of the things that I do is push these kids.
So now, there are 4 types of transformations. We have done reflections, right? Cross it off. We're getting ready to do translation, so we have to do rotations and dilations.
Well, where's the smell? Why are you so loud? Why you get like that? Why can't you just talk to me like that? I said, wait a minute. Does your coach ever get loud? Or do they say to you, well, come on, Delvante, you can work a little harder than that? Do they talk all the time? No. It's just sometimes they get loud. I say, oh, I'm the same way sometimes. Sometimes I got to get in your face. Sometimes I'm going to sit back and pat you in the back. But all of it is necessary to show you that you can do it.
And what changes? The why. So if the point was 1-3, what should be its reflection?
1 - 3.
Very good. You got it. So put it. When I first started out, I wouldn't have been a teacher. I wanted to be a mathematical analyst. And every job I applied for said, you need 5 years experience. You need 8 years experience. So I kept thinking, you know, I'm right out of college. How am I going to get this experience? And I couldn't see how I was going to get it. And a friend of my mom's called and said, you know, Detroit Public Schools really needs some teachers. Didn't your daughter just graduate from college and she majored in math? And my mom said, yes, but she didn't go to school to be a teacher. She didn't do any of that. Well, tell her to go apply. Detroit Public Schools hired me that same morning. You pick your first one, observe. I want you guys to explore and to see how these reflections work. I was going to establish relationships that would be long-lasting relationships with my students. And it has worked. The relationship piece has been just excellent. I think if we build the relationship, even on those days that the kids don't do exactly what it is I want them to do, I still appreciate it. I don't believe in suspending kids either. I believe that you should stay in school and we should modify that behavior. And if it means you have to be with me every day, all day, until we can show you how to act, we'll do that. And they just have to be with me all day. That means they eat lunch with me. When I go to the bathroom, they go to the bathroom. Or if they have to go, I go with them. And most of the times after they've seen that, you know, she's taking me out of the environment, now she's eating with me, she's talking to me, and I only let them talk to me. I mean, so we talk about what was positive, and we talk about other things too, but we make sure we stick on them. What could they do better so that they can get back in the environment? But you have improved, you know that. It just in this week, students seem to not think that teachers get frustrated too because we're human beings. And I get frustrated quite often. I think I get frustrated because I see their potential, but they don't see it. And I'm trying so hard to get them to see it because we have some very, very bright, intelligent kids. They just don't know it yet. So I'm trying to help them discover how smart and how bright they are. So nothing else changed except it was sliding. So what should you choose?
Cody is 5 schools right now. Instead of having 2,000 kids that are kind of lost in the shuffle, we want to have groups of 500 to 600 kids. It's really just about every kid should be known by an adult really well. We have advisory groups where there's 10 kids, 1 adult, and that way they can talk to us about everything.
Okay, my first poem is called Lonely Without a Trace.
Last year we had 110 students here. And having 110 students in this one hallway, had a chance to meet everyone, had the chance to listen to their stories, their background, and we built a rapport. Now, you're going to be the one that has to tell us how many weeks in each one of the months.
This school has been in operation. This is ending our 2nd year, and we have a lot of community partnerships. But I noticed that all the partnerships were geared towards the boys. What are the 4 ways I can reflect? I was very concerned about the way the boys address the girls and the way the girls allow them to address them. I felt it was inappropriate. I believe in my heart that if the girls do not allow it, it will stop. I believe people only treat you the way you allow them to treat you. So I think that our girls have to demand more respect and they will receive more. I'm going to show them how to demand more. I'm going to show them how to carry themselves like a young lady so that people will respect them like a young lady.
Who are you without the fashion? Ask that question.
Well, in the meantime and in between time, Kelly Brown, who was one of my former students, she came up here one day. And she said, do you remember me? And I said, yes, you used to play basketball. And so she gave me her card and she told me that she, you know, was trying to start a program where she could come back and give back to the community.
And actually, I just came up here like, you know, I just want to speak to the girls, speak to the youth.
She was seeing the community deteriorate because of the way the kids were acting and just different things. And she wanted to change that mindset around.
So I started walking towards Warwick and West Chicago. I just happened to look down the street, and I seen this boy take another boy's shoes off his feet, and he pulled a gun out and he just shot the boy in his shoulder. I was so scared. I didn't even come to school the next day because I didn't know if the boy was gonna be like, you seen me, had a gun, and all of this.
So she asked me, is there any way, you know, I can come up to the school and sometimes talk to the girls?
They just opened up to me, telling me things that they never told anybody. And it's like they felt that rapport, they felt that trust, because I was telling them, just being honest about my life. I had to put my mom in rehab for prescription pills, but I kept moving. You know, I had to take that step with raising my sister, but I kept moving. I always had respect for my mother. You know, my aunt raised me, and to let them know we go through some of the same things, and we can do it.
My grandfather used to tell me, it's hard to be great every day, but it's easy to work hard every day. And that's how he lived his life, and I was able to see that, and that's how I patterned my life. Teamwork. What's 3 times X?
Oh, yeah, it sure is 3X.
3X. What's 3 times Y? My first career choice was accounting. Actually, I have a bachelor's in accounting. Took the classes and got a degree, made mom real proud. Now when people talk about that your job is pretty much what you do and who you are, and accounting just wasn't who I was. When people say Detroit public schools are bad, you think they're just saying the building is bad or the building and the people inside of it? Huh? So why when we talk about fixing stuff and doing stuff, we disconnect ourselves from it saying, like, these schools is bad. I've heard you say it, man, this school ain't nothing. So really, if people think that, and that's what you know people think, when you say the school is bad, what are you really saying? You gotta put yourself out there. I want them to understand that you are the biggest investment in this particular piece. So when you're ready to do something, that's when we'll fix things in Detroit. Or that's when things will happen, not when somebody from the outside says, we're going to fix you. You have to fix yourself. The first thing I do is I let my kids know that I'm human. And I share some of my background with them. It's not all positive. I share some of the decisions that I made and the consequences of those decisions. And I let them know I'm human. In mathematics and I'm teaching social skills, I make mistakes and they point them out. And I just own up to them. Some people, that is true. That is a sweet mistake. Some people do. And that builds that bond of trust because they come look at you like, who is this guy? What do you think he is? Anybody has something different than that? Huh? Come on, Day-Day. In business, if I'm in a particular business and I order some supplies for you, my input goods, and they're not up to par, I can make a phone call and say, hey, I don't want them. You need to send me higher quality of goods, raw materials. But when a student comes in this door, we don't send them back. Whatever that raw material, we bring it in and we work with them. So that's where the business part of it ends, when we start talking about the people and the interpersonal things that they bring to the table.
Tilt it up.
Well, oftentimes my students tell me they don't believe that I went to school in Detroit or that I'm from the same neighborhood and face some of the same challenges that they face. So we have to get in the car sometimes, and I bring them here, where I went to school, Southeastern High School on 3030 Fairview. Walking through the neighborhood, going to school every day, trying to do the right thing. But there are some challenges to that. Neighborhood sometimes not a safe place. There are some people in the neighborhood who may not want you to succeed. And there are some temptations. I stayed about 2 miles from here, and between those 2 miles, there was probably 5 different gang sets. So you either could choose to walk some days, or you caught the bus some days, or we did what we did when we were coming out of school. You walked until the bus came. But you have to overcome those things. I bring that into the classroom with such a passion to show them that I did it. And once they visit my school and go inside and see my old coaches and some old photos and some things like that, they can start to relate to me. And I just tell them, I say, hey, I'm going to give you some tools that you can help overcome those challenges. But let me help you.
You did a good job. We have to discover what's really going on with them, and it's our job to pull that out of them, make sure that they have some hope and they believe in themselves when they go out into the world.
You got to switch it. And that's probably the hardest thing to sell to a student, is to have faith, because that's something that's far off. When every day, if I'm walking down the street and all I see are empty lots or people begging or despair, it's hard for me as a young person to believe that if I do something 10 years from now, something's going to happen. But that's what I have to sell them. While the man is on the corner selling dope, I got to sell hope. We tired of winning. Woo!
Here at Evergreen, we had 200 students, we'll say. And the students that I've worked with this year, we'll say 175 of them told me that they wanted to go to college, but had no real concrete idea of what college is about. So what I did, I said, we'll go to college campuses. So we visited Wayne State University, University of Michigan, Western Michigan, Oakland University. I got them on campus so that it could be something that they can reach out that's tangible for them, something that they could touch. So they say, I'm on this campus, I see a student that looks like me, or I see someone who has similar background or similar experiences. So I think it's important just to take what I know and what has happened with me or to me in the world and bring it into the classroom, just give them opportunity to experience it from my eyes and their eyes as well.
Remember, 3 parts to your final exam.
When they find out, that moment hits and they're like, oh, you graduated from here? Wait a second. It's kind of like, well, I can listen to you now. You're one of us. So that's huge. That's been a huge help. Telling them, hey, I sat in these seats too. I think it puts it in perspective. From a little girl, since kindergarten, all the way up, being around kids, being in the school environment, it always made sense. My mom was a single mom. My dad was kind of off doing his thing, and she raised myself and my brother, and we cleaned banks with her. She was a bank teller during the day, and then she cleaned the banks at night and parking lots on the weekends. I had great teachers, kindergarten through senior year in high school. Mrs. Bird, oh, I wish she was around still. I can't thank that woman enough. She was my kindergarten teacher. And she, you know, being from a family that we struggled to make ends meet at times, I came to school one day and I didn't have proper shoes. They were, you know, they had holes in them, tears at the seams, and she noticed. You know, who notices somebody's shoes? She noticed, and it wasn't long, and she came in the next day with shoes, and she pulled me aside, and hey, they were these goofy little red 80s boots. But I thought they were the best thing I'd ever seen, and she gave them to me, so they were prized possessions, and just an amazing woman. That one moment stands out. I thought, I want to be a teacher, and I want to give kids shoes.
I had to vent. I think I'm going to be happy.
I'm glad you did. Come on in.
Sharing experiences and helping them, getting them the tools they need to continue, whether it's, you know, advice on a relationship, whether it's some advice with a family who's struggling, being able to help a student go through driver's training and get his driver's license is a pretty cool thing. You know, helping some girls who have, you know, pregnancy, teen pregnancy is something that I've really been able to counsel girls on. I had my son young, so them knowing that, I don't tell them flat out about it, but they do the math real quick and they go, oh, okay, you know, you were really young too. And they come back to me and they will talk, and you know, they need to know that education is important, and it's not just for you. It's not selfish at all to want an education. It's for that baby. It's for your family and your future and that baby's future. That's so huge. It's a shame that Melvindale does have a reputation, and I really don't know when it started or why. It was like that when I was in school. It's like that now, and people associate violence and things, and that's just not the case. Our kids are the most caring, the most loving. They hold doors for you when you come in. When I was a student, it's a school pride thing. We were the Cardinals, and we were very proud of that. The sporting events and the Friday night football games, when you were out yelling and screaming with your class, and float competitions at homecoming. It's very near and dear to your heart. And I think how it's crossed over now to me as an adult, it's an enormous pride. It's really an incredible sense of pride in this building. The kids are amazing. I would tease with them up until last year. I think that one of the chemistry books still had my name on it. So they asked me, what's your maiden name? And I'd tell them, and then they would look through their chemistry books and try and find it. Who's got our book? Who's got our book? It's very fun. But just builds that relationship with the kids.
So let's roll with those today to help us build our essay. I started out wanting to be a newscaster. I refer to my students as an audience because, to a large degree, I'm a performer. I need reception from them. I need feedback from them. I need for them to treat me as if I were on stage delivering a play. They like what they see, then they should let me know. They should cheer. They should say, you know, I learned something from that. And if they don't, they should boo me, because that means that I didn't do what I need to do on that stage. I get up very early in the mornings. I think about my lessons all day long. I think about them the days before I unfold them. I think about them as I'm dressing, as I'm eating, as I'm driving, when I go to bed, when I get up. How dare I get here and waste their time? I never want to waste a young person's time, because I didn't appreciate the teachers who wasted my time, who were not prepared. And I always said I would be the opposite of that. The few teachers that I had that were really good teachers were so influential in my life. I wanted to be just like them.
Hey, Miss Buffer! How are you?
I still see the same as Buffer from 5th grade. But you were so tall.
Yes, but you were little.
Yeah, I was.
You were 5th grade.
Come on in.
Tanya was a very good student.
Ruthie Bufford was my 5th grade teacher. I love her so much. She was the first teacher that I had that showed this honesty that I embraced so much. She loved us. She told us she loved us. Those were the words that came out of her mouth. I mean, what teacher does that?
She was going to go on and do something something great.
When I got into teaching, I called Miss Bufford from that first teaching assignment, I'll never forget, and she almost started to cry.
I was surprised. I was very surprised. I looked at it as that she was probably not going to go into teaching, that she would probably be an engineer, maybe a doctor, but I did not think she would be a teacher.
One of these subtopics is going to be what? That's our topic. What's the first one that Rachel read? All right, so one of these, thank you, is going to be maintenance. So we're going to write about what do you think the monies will do for the maintenance piece? How can monies help with maintenance? And I said, no, it's all your fault. I'm here to stay. She just was so encouraging. You know, everything that I needed from her away from home, she was the person that said, I know what these young people need, and she listened to us.
But it just made me feel good that I had touched her life, that she wanted to become a teacher.
I think I'm a mini Bufford.
Every moment with her was a teachable moment. And that's the kind of teacher I've tried to be. You know, I don't just teach social studies. I mix in all the other core subjects too, because that's what Ms. Bufford did as well. And that's teaching to the whole student. And then it says, when you hear the phrase Millie, what comes to mind?
The students have to know that you care about them and that you want what's best for them. I tried just not to be a teacher, but I tried to teach them other things that they would need to help them get through life.
It was beyond the classroom. You didn't have to go into this other realm of education.
But that's part of being educated.
It is.
You're trying to build everything about that young person from the ground up in all areas while you have them and you have their attention. Thank you. And go ahead and take a 10 for that. All right, so we wrote this down. This was part of our test notes. If you were here.
When I was a kid, I was the only person in our house who changed our living room around. You know, my parents were gone. I'd be moving couches and cabinets and stuff, and It gave it a fresh feeling when you walked into it.
In the classroom, he's always moving the seats, like each week, to where we understand in groups we learn together or by ourselves.
And I kind of took that whole idea and brought it into the classroom. They can't sit by themselves all day, every hour, trying to learn something. So I try to put them in groups from time to time for activities. They'll be in pairs when we're trying to learn something new. They'll be on their own from time to time to learn how to handle things by themselves, because that's part of life as well. And that's part of my structure. You know, kids tell me, you know, Mr. Brown, we like the way you're laid back. Yeah, I'm a laid back guy. However, they also know that I have a structure in my classroom. The larger the number, the more narrow. But how does this negative affect it? Okay, it doesn't affect whether it's wider or more narrow. It does affect whether it opens up or opens down. A lot of teachers think that we got to push these kids to get through. But if these kids don't see the application of the math, they're missing out on an entire mathematics experience.
And he makes sure we understand that before we go on to a new problem, because if we're doing the same problem, we're not getting any moves on, it's not going to help.
I have learned that I can take a day out, sometimes even two, to get kids to work in groups on an activity that brings the math to life. But there is a way to find out specifically what this slope is right here. And how can I do that using this circle?
His door's open to anybody, even if you don't have him as a teacher. And if you need help, he'll help you.
We got to make time to show these kids that, you know what, I do care about you. And I know that they need that connection. Sometimes you have to lend them an ear. They just need to talk to get something off their chest. And then after that, you may remove stumbling blocks for their learning.
School improvement focuses on taking our kids and looking at our kids as a whole and saying they all need to be successful.
Or it starts at 9:03 and ends at 9:48?
Yep.
Okay.
You can talk about changing the face of the high school. You can talk about making those improvements. We know that the bottom line is it doesn't matter how nice our media center is, how great our labs are, if our students aren't walking out of here as great products, ready to be successful.
Physical structure is one thing, but that don't mean nothing. That's like, is a house a home? No, it's not. A house is a building. A home is what you make of it inside.
Your title is student athlete, and they put student first for a reason. You gotta be student first. Why do you think that's so important?
We have a program called Family Advocate System, FAS, and each teacher is responsible for anywhere from a dozen to 24 students. And our responsibility is making sure these kids stay on track, and if they're not, we give them advice. It's also a support group. We teach the kids to lean on each other there. You know, you're falling behind in this class, pick yourself up. What can you do to improve yourself?
Being an administrator doesn't mean you stop being a teacher ever. It just means that you have a bigger classroom. I think the big difference in that is that you have this focus of, instead of being just focused on your kids and removing their barriers, you're instead focused on teachers as well and figuring out how you can remove barriers for them so that they can remove barriers for students.
A great teacher in my eyes is someone that helps you, doesn't just, you know, explain the math, but like, or whatever subject it is, but like tries to seek other things out of that.
Forget about this, okay, you got to solve for y, so bring this over. We're talking about, where does this apply in real life? And if we can't express that to the kids, where's the meaning of it for them?
Now it's going to show you all the different geometry angles that are here. You have camber, which is your inward-outward tilt. And this little diagram right here, this little arrow is going to show you whether you're at the proper angle.
Our auto shop teacher, he started to look through his stuff and he's like, I teach this. And I said, I know you do. And then when you teach it, it means something to them and they're willing to learn it. When I'm teaching y is equal to on a board, they don't think it's anything that they'll ever need in their lives. So we kind of developed a plan at the time to break our students up into small learning communities based on career interests.
If a kid is having a particularly down day, They can knock on my door during my prep hour and I'll bring them in and we'll talk for a few, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10. We got to make time to show these kids that, you know what, I do care about you. And bring them in. What is 5 minutes? What is 10 minutes out of your day? It means a whole world to that kid.
I think as a high school teachers, we talk about teaching our content, but I don't think we think a lot about really teaching kids.
When the students do things right, I always encourage them. Okay, if it's not perfect, I'm not looking for perfection, I'm looking for improvement. Okay, you got it.
There have been several situations where kids felt comfortable in coming to the teachers here and speaking to us one-on-one or in small groups. I mean, we've had situations at home that I believe if we were still one big high school, we would have missed out on helping a child.
Hi, may I speak to Miss Parker? This is Miss Shorter calling from MCH. I got tired of calling home just because kids were misbehaving. It got to the point where the parents were saying, when they would answer the phone, well, what did my child do now? No, Michelle is not in trouble. I think they were tired, they'd grown weary, I had. And I said, let's switch this up. And so I decided to make a phone call to say that Johnny actually got it today. You sitting down? Okay, I'm calling to tell you that Michelle did an excellent job today in class.
The school that we were in, there was a lot of negative feedback, a lot of negative things. So you rarely hear positive things from people. So to hear it from her, it kind of made us think about it and made us, wow, somebody's actually paying attention to the good that we do instead of the bad.
She's able to communicate with the kids and actually teach them a lesson in a way in which they can understand. And she is very nurturing and she really cares about the kids, and you can see it in how she speaks.
How many kinds of vetoes does he have? 2. All right, so, and then the presidential veto or a pocket veto. I stood here and put my hands in my pocket, DeAndre.
What makes inner city students a little bit different is that even bright students really won't try hard unless they think you care.
What percent is that? What percent is that?
They'll tell you in a minute. If you don't, you treat me bad, so I'm not gonna do my work. Because in many instances, they don't have the intrinsic desire to do it, and that's what we're trying to cultivate. That's the culture we're trying to change.
It's a great feeling, you know what I'm saying? I got somebody that's gonna always be there for me, you know what I'm saying? And then it's a teacher, you know, I never had a teacher that was like, I'm gonna always be there for you, so it's great.
It's not the fact that we're in the Cody building, that it's a small school. We could be in a church, we could be in the basement of the city-county building. The thing about it is that you create a culture where every student's opinion counts, how they feel counts, and if and when and how they learn counts. It's creating that culture, which is what makes it a small school. Without it, it's just a regular high school with a few kids in it.
And we have a lot of cases of young people who come to school because it is a safe haven. In this school, it may be the warmest place that they're going to be for that entire day. It may be the one place that at lunchtime and also at breakfast that they're going to eat that day. A lot of these things, they come into play and you see it in the kids and you get a chance to understand, as much as it breaks your heart, you know, their stories. Bring your papers with you, but leave everything else. 2 years ago, I had a young man who came in the classroom. He was really upset and, you know, he was just lashing out. He was cursing at people. So I stepped up and I asked the young man, I was like, what is your problem? And he just went off on me, he just cursed me out. At that point in time, I could have done what most people would do. I could have gone back at him, back and forth with an argument, or I could have kicked him out of class. I chose to take him out in the hallway and just ask him what was going on. In doing that, I just was observing the kid's clothing because he was sitting in the classroom, but when he got up, I looked, and he had like little dried up blood on his uniform. So I asked him, you know, what's going on? He was like, well, Mr. Baker, I'm sorry for cussing everybody out, but, you know, last night my mother stabbed me and she kicked me out the house and I slept in an abandoned house. But this kid still got up and came to school the very next day. He could have stayed out there, he could have been in the street, but he came to school.
I had this ninth grader that came in, and he was in one of our support classes that were started with this idea of how are we going to really start to help our kids be successful.
I don't really think I had a goal when I first started high school. You know, all I knew was that I wanted to make it, but I didn't know how, and I didn't think that school was going to help.
And he came in, he had his head down, he wasn't engaged.
You know, I slacked off a lot my freshman year. When I actually tried and strived to achieve, it just bring in so many opportunities.
And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he started answering all my questions. And he looks at me and he says, yeah, he's like, I just didn't do very well in the 8th grade. I made some really bad choices and they held me back. He had become absolutely disengaged because that moment in time had defeated him, like he thought it was already over. I said, you know, you're smart. You're really smart.
And from there, she just basically told me, you know, you can be doing so much more. You're capable of much more.
I made him help all the other students in the class. And you see just how much that one point in time, being able to have somebody that was there that said, no, you know, we're going to overcome this and we're going to move past this and you're going to be really successful, made a difference for him. And you see it every day that he's here in the building.
So everything's gone well this year then?
Yeah.
We haven't worked too hard?
Not too hard.
Memories are invoked by, you know, space and symbols and things, and not much has changed since I graduated with the physical building. So I still remember myself in the classrooms. And I can kind of take a deep breath and, okay, you know, they're teenagers. I did this too. I did this right here. And they'll get through this. I just have to coach them. What do I wish someone would have said to me when I was feeling this way?
I had her for a class called The Family and for Child Development. And right around that time, she was getting married and she was having a baby. So she always had like stories to tell us. And, you know, it was pretty cool because she brought outside experiences that she had into the class. A lot of teachers kind of act like they're perfect. And she would give examples about where she messed up. No, it sounds funny because she was my teacher, but I looked at her like a friend. There would be times where we would be going through really rough times as students, peer pressure, or even things where people don't realize you have problems because you're so young. And she would, you know, have you stay after class and she would talk to you a little bit. And that even made it where I wanted to come to her class because it wasn't just a teacher, but it was somebody that I knew understood me, and she never really judged anybody, but she was very open. And I looked at her like a mom that I wanted to be. You see a successful woman that might not have had the perfect life growing up, but she made something out of it. And that's definitely, I could definitely relate to it.
It's really nice to provide that role model family for my kids. You know, being a child whose parents were divorced, I didn't see that often. And I remember playing volleyball and the kids, both parents were at the games. And I thought, well, that's kind of, I wish both my parents could be at the games. For those kids that don't have that traditional family unit, to see that and to know that it's possible in a world where you hear divorce rates are over 50%, that's not always how it is. That's not it. And like I tell my girls all the time, don't ever settle for less. Ever, ever, ever. Don't ever settle. And I remember when my husband sent me flowers for my birthday, the first year we were just dating. And I had mentioned months and months before that purple was my favorite color, and the flowers came in and they were purple. And I told my girls, I said, don't ever settle for a man who can't remember your favorite color. I said, that's the guy you want. And a couple of years ago, I had one of my students come back, and, you know, she was still with a guy in high school, and she says, you know, I keep thinking about what you said about, does he remember my favorite color? I thought it was just a random thing that I said at the moment, and she had stuck onto that, and that's what she was gauging her relationship on. And I thought, you know, good for you. Good for you. Don't settle for anything less than Mr. Wonderful. I want them to have that cardinal pride, and I want them to hold their heads high, and I want them to sing that fight song at the top of their lungs and sound like fools. I want them to come back to Friday night football games and hear that victory bell after a touchdown and get goosebumps. I want them to feel that, to be proud to say, I graduated from Malvindale, and not hesitate, not think, are these people going to judge me? Not stop for 1 second. I want them to be proud of it. They should be. They absolutely should be.
And I read a story where a teacher was having a difficult time teaching a lesson with her students, and so she just paused the lesson and told everyone to take out pen and paper and write something nice about someone in the class. And then they shared those letters, and it had such an impact on the students because it showed them what others thought of them, and that perception did a lot to boost their morale. And so then they were ready to start learning again. So I started writing letters to my students to do that same thing.
She was just a nice around person. You know, a lot of teachers, they say one thing and then they'll go do a different thing too, but she actually meant what she said. And her words spoke volume to me. You know, I took the words and I ran with them. She didn't give me anything negative. It was always a positive thing. Even if I was doing negative, she would turn it into a positive, make me say, you know what, you're right. You know, I should do this.
Derek Fawcett was a student who was in my 9th grade class when I first got here. And I wrote Derek one of these letters.
One day, I think it was maybe the last day of school, we was about to get off for summer break when you wrote it.
I remember that. It was the end of the school year. I wrote the class because I used to do that every year. I remember that.
We were in class, we did our work, and she started passing these letters. I'm like, what is it? She said, you know, I'm going to write a letter to my students, and hopefully this letter would, you know, do something for you. And mine did.
So you got something in your hand?
Yeah, this is my letter. I told you, I have it. I look at it all the time. I kept it for going on 10 years now. I folded it up and put it in my wallet. And it sat there for a few years. And then one day I was cleaning my wallet out again, and I ran across the letter. I'm like, you know, I still got this letter. And that's when I started coming up here and visiting every so many years, you know. And when it was getting old and wrinkly, I started to laminate it. And you can see it was getting old. So,
it's getting worn.
That's why I had to laminate, because I didn't want to lose it, because it meant something to me. I didn't have a lot of people, you know, saying, do this, do that, do this. And for her to go out her way and take the time to write this letter to me, I felt it was personal, you know. She cared about, you know, students and how your future is going to be versus just, okay, whatever, here you go. So that letter, it meant a lot to me for that. When I think things were going wrong, you know, I would look at the letter and I'm like, somebody believed in me enough to do something.
Do you really think that?
Yeah.
That's the greatest satisfaction. It really is. For them to come back, first of all, for them to think enough of me to want to come back, to even have a conversation with me. My whole relationship with them is just based on conversations. That's the way I teach my classes. I talk to them. I don't just give a handout and go sit down. And so when the students come back, I feel like I've done some service to them. And that's the ultimate payoff. It really is a great deal of satisfaction.
It's a lot of hope in that letter. It's a small letter, but it's a lot of hope. And, you know, I'm going to continue to hold on to the letter for like years to come until it goes away on its own. I'm going to have the letter. It's tons of hope in the letter.
You working this summer?
Yeah, I'm trying to be a police cadet.
I want them to know that they loved. That's one of the things I want them to know, that they are, from Mr. Miller, you were loved, and he genuinely cares about your success. But I've seen you improve, though. From the first when I met you, you used to have that attitude all the time. You improved.
I'm talking to the social worker. They've been helping you with my...
Who's your social worker? I'm talking about here?
Because I've been having family issues.
You be mad? Are you adopted? I didn't know that. I want you to know that while you're with me, that I genuinely care about you. Now, as far as the academics, I'm going to push you with rigor and high expectations so that you'll be prepared, so that when you go in front of any teacher at any level, college or go right off into your trade or what have you, that you'll be prepared for that. But first and foremost, I want them to know that they're loved.
I met my daddy Sunday.
You just met your father for the first time? Sunday. Wow.
So I always wanted him in my life. My doctor, my baby, they want him in my life. My grandma had took them in, but my grandma, she was color street. So she didn't want the dark.
Look, when I was your age, I just use those little journals that you know that they give us like in school. Right now, I probably got about over 100 and some journals. Just when I wrote stuff, poetry, how I was feeling. Let's get you a book. I'm gonna bring you a book. It's gonna have all blank pages on it. You just write down the stuff that you want to write down, and I was already proud of you. Now I'm over here like, wow. To be honest with you, you had something in your life that people could take as a negative, use it as a positive. Because one day you're gonna be a wife and a mother yourself. I've seen it. I have students that are in colleges all across this country that come back or call me and say, Mr. Miller, I remember you told me this in 1998. Or Mr. Miller, remember when you did this? Or Mr. Miller, this is my wife and my children. Or Mr. Miller, these are some of the things that I'm doing. So without a doubt, I mean, it's my city. I gotta invest in.
came up with the DIVA Club. DIVA stands for Distinguished Individual Vowing Achievement. I'm going to take Kelly's Lost Souls and partner it with the DIVA Club. We are going to bring this esteem and the character up of our students. We are going to Camp Hiawatha, which is approximately 4 hours away, about 270 miles. We're going to be doing team building activities. We're going to do rock climbing, zip lining, and just things to get our girls to work on them. I believe if we could teach them to love themselves, they'll respect themselves, and they will not allow anyone to disrespect them. One of the girls asked me about the swimsuits, and she was like, Ms. Ray, you put on there to bring a swimsuit, but on the paperwork you gave us, it doesn't say they have a pool. And I said, no, but they have a lake. And she said, well, what are we going to do at the lake? I said, we're going to use your swimming suit and go in. Everybody needs somebody. I know all of us think that we can make it in this world alone, but if you really, really think about it, we all need someone. You can't do it all by yourself. You need a team. You need a team to make the whole piece form together. In this school, in life, they're going to have to act as a team in order to overcome obstacles, in order to knock down barriers. I need a partner for when I'm feeling down, a team, a partner, someone to make me feel better about myself.
This is their community. It's their home, it's their circle of friends, it's their circle of knowledge. It is the place that they go to and they live. It's their entire world. And so when they come here, it should be someplace that they feel safe, that they feel excited to go to.
I just heard a kid 2 days ago say, I love coming to school. He goes, what would I be doing if I wasn't here? Sleeping, watching TV? He goes, I love this. So, you know what, that says a lot about our building, when a kid can actually say, I love coming to school.
Here I feel like I'm Kobe Bryant or somebody, you know. In every class I feel like I'm the best. I strive to do the best. I try to be the best, you know, have the highest grades. You know, I try to compete with everyone as much as possible. I just started off with a small goal, you know. First, you're going to make it through high school. And actually, I have a son now, you know, so that right there told me that, you know, you're no longer doing this for you. Whether you like it or not, you're going to have some type of goal if you want to take care of you and your family.
So many kids were saying, you know, we feel like a family. We still rise like the sunlight through a dark window.
I took 2 students to their first ballet, and the mother was in tears when I went to pick them up. I'm like, why are you crying? Because no teacher has ever gone to that length.
My name is Dante Fluker. The name of my poem is The War Within.
There are 2 kids that have been struggling all year, and the last few weeks volunteered to read parts of our play out loud, sat at a table and read. There are 2 books, same copy of the same book. They decided for their reading time they were going to read to each other. Watching them do that, it's like, that's what it's all about.
You know I eat beets, but this is just a beverage.
Building this community, this culture, to show them that we care so that they will work, but eventually, you know, get within them that you're not doing this for me, you're doing it for you.
And that's why I strive to tell the kids, every day it's going to be a challenge, but you have to work your way through it. And looking at the kids when they come back, that makes me feel like, you know, I've been successful in terms of working with them when they come back and just say thank you.
A great teacher is a person who gets the results.
Yeah, are you going to be able to do it without the cussing? And they care and they connect with kids, kids will come along for the ride. It's got to be the expectations and the caring that go together. So we're going to have to do some radio edits, right?
You have to develop children just like film. They have to have exposure and development.
Big high schools have great teachers in small pockets and spots, but they can't change the culture of a school by themselves. We need each other for us to make this work. Is that right, Grow?
You divided by the child, right?
You can't do this job doing it the same way, day in and day out, because the kids change, so you have to change as well.
developing them into mature adults, productive citizens, and young people who care about where they are and where they're going.
And that makes a great teacher.
Great Teachers is brought to you by the United Way for Southeastern Michigan, with support from the Ford Foundation. More information is available at www.liveunitedsem.org.